So it's time for some reflections and questions, and I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of questions from the audience, but you will have to wait just a minute because I will take the opportunity to ask the first question. So I think it's been, if not before, I think it's been very, very clear now that customer focus is a very important part of industrialized construction. And also that industrialized construction is sometimes understood as mass producing not very attractive solutions. I think that has been very clear also that that's not the case actually, because we've seen some really great examples of that. But we also heard Daryl talk about the difficulties to unlock the potential to really get these amazing solutions to scale, to really unlock the potential and the benefits in terms of sustainability, lower price, shorter schedules, and so on. So my question is, or I'm curious to hear your thoughts, at least, on how we can unlock, or how you are planning to unlock to really get the benefits out of this, so that it really makes a difference. Because we know we can do amazing things, but we want to make it at some sort of scale. So that's my curiosity. Who wants to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as some of the speakers before alluded to, it's really standardization of components and parts which we focus on. So the way that we build homes is with standardized panels, and that is something that ultimately is helping us to scale that. But quite honestly, initially we have started in a premium segment of the market because of the challenge to scale. And as kind of Tesla started with the Model S first, the expensive product, you get very motivated extreme users to purchase the vehicle, and then ultimately scale, to Model 3. That's how we see ourselves today, is really coming out with our first products, competing in the higher end of the market. And quite frankly, a lot of places in California are at the high end of the market, so we're in a good place. Here in urban areas like Los Angeles and San Francisco, it costs $600 per square foot to build a single family home. And that's kind of where we are positioning ourselves, and really getting the message out there, and ultimately standardizing components and parts so that when we're ready to build at scale, we'll be able to do that affordably.
Thanks. Daryl, or who wants to go?
Well, I'll touch on it briefly. I think I started to address it at the very end of my talk. I mean, slightly different take on standardization. I think we have to look at standardization of the interfaces so that we can drive this interoperability, because I think there's lots of different ideas about what the solutions are: panels, volumetric, this process, that process, on-site, off-site. But if we could blend some of these things together usefully, and the customers had the choice about which components from which suppliers, but knew that they had some compatibility, I think that changes the scale story for everybody in the equation.
Christoph, do you have any thoughts? And then we can go to Samuel. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, we have, as Haas, we have experience for more than 50 years of standardization, the product. The last 6 or 7 years, we are also standardizing the process. And now we have the problem or the opportunity to digitalize this know-how to a digital solution. So we have to put all this knowledge we have in our company into a digital house configurator.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
Our problem, or our goal in the future.
Exactly, thanks. And Samuel, with your very massive customer insights and even doing mock-ups and so on. Any thoughts on how you are really taking this to the skies?
Well, I think many things have already been said, but coming back to the root of the question, how do we make sure we don't bite off more than we can chew? The viewpoint that we've always taken is we talk about productization in our approach, and when you look at an asset category, a building, I mentioned the hotel example, you don't have to productize everything right away. We split that into what we call reference design, where we really focus on standardization and then leveraging prefabrication and so forth for certain building elements. But other parts of the building we leave as is, and we call that supplemental design, where you then ultimately also use traditional construction. And I think that can be one path of working your way up the ladder, so to speak, step by step, by really looking at what you want to productize at what point along the journey.
Thanks a lot. Interesting. And now I think I'll open up for the live audience here. And we will have 2 hand mics that we will pass around. And when you are handed the mic, please say your name and where you come from, and then try to make a short question. Let's see where we have the hand mics. Who has the hand mics? See me? And over there. So who has a question? I think we have one here in the center.
Thank you. My name is Pooja Jain. I'm with WSP. And my question is around, we talked a lot about industrialized construction and prefabrication. And one point that you mentioned, another friction for getting houses or any real estate into the ground is permitting. And so I'm curious how the industrialized construction methodology is also influencing, if at all, that other friction point, which is around, not related to fabrication, but more around all the external stakeholders.
Absolutely correct that permitting has been one of the obstacles in terms of building more in the United States. And the way that permitting is controlled is by municipalities. So each city has their own zoning, has their own building codes, making it very complex. What's been happening recently, I've seen, is at the state level. So states like California changing their building code and really allowing for industrialized construction. And so, for example, if you're manufacturing in California, you will no longer fall under the jurisdiction of the municipality, but under the state, the housing and development. And effectively, the home or the panels that are being manufactured are inspected at the factory level. They come to site HCD approved, that's state level approval, therefore eliminating that need for local inspection and jurisdiction and oversight. And that's also not easy because municipalities want to retain that power. And so there's been some friction between municipalities and the state in that area, but it's a positive development. And we see specifically in the cases of ADUs in California, permitting has been sped up significantly. Now you could have an ADU approved in 2 months or less. And a lot of the cities are actually allowing for pre-approved plans for ADUs to be approved by the city beforehand so that it becomes an over-the-counter approval. And so it's a positive sign that we see happening on the state level.
Thank you. Any more reflections, or we go on to the next one? Or I saw Ray waving, so if we can hand the mic over there, and then we have one over there as well. So we'll start with Ray.
Thank you. Ray Levitt with Blackhorn Ventures. You know, I did a study in the late 1970s at the Harvard-MIT Joint Center for housing of a company called Ryan Homes on the East Coast. And using a checklist of options and primitive computing by today's standards, punch cards on IBM mainframes, they gave customers a sort of a semi-custom set of options, and they dominated the low-cost housing market, starting in Pittsburgh, all the way up to DC, all the way down to Florida, and they did very well. They got so rich they bought a baseball team in Pittsburgh, the two owners, and then they ended up selling the company. But they came up with a solution that worked for low-cost housing. It was wood frame panels, basically built on a table with jigs in a factory that cost $250,000 in 1980 dollars roughly. And were able to do it. They were vertically integrated. They had a mortgage company that qualified customers. They took options on land, so they weren't tied up in land. They exercised the options when the customers signed, got approval on the mortgages, and they delivered that house in 2 weeks. And so there was never a construction loan. The mortgage closed before there was a need for a construction loan. Why can't somebody do that today with all our technology?
Anyone up for a challenge? Any response to that, or is it possible? I mean, it has obviously been possible, so, or is it a different type of offerings that we have today that requires more?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I can cite some other examples. There's a firm in New Zealand that's got similar success, and you don't need massive factories and you don't need massive complex technology to get these things work. I mean, there's a lean construction movement, obviously, that really believes in getting the processes right. And it's about controlling all the factors you just spoke about. So the question is, well, why don't other people copy the same model, right? Because it clearly does work. And the other question is, why aren't they sustained? Because eventually you see these things somehow run out of life and they close down. I don't know whether it's because they get too big or try to do things that move beyond their core focus, but there's not many sustaining examples of that, and I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you. We have another question over here, right?
Hi, I'm Dilshi from Building 4.0, and my question is directed to Polari. So you mentioned that you were involved with the world's first net zero energy community, the space. So out of the 40% of the emissions, while 26% of the emissions is related to energy, the rest of the 14% comes from embodied. So I'm interested to know if there's a common slip that happens is when you're so intensely focused on getting the operation emissions down, there's a burden shift that happens to embodied. So I'm interested to know if you looked at the embodied emissions. That's my first question. And to follow up on that, I'm keen to know if any of the buildings that were built are certified, whether there's environmental certifications.
Thank you. That's a great question. So the embodied emissions are hardest, obviously, to quantify and to abate. Nowadays, sustainability is in vogue, and a lot of home builders are calling themselves sustainable simply because they allow an option to put solar panels on their on-site built homes. So with that specifically, net zero energy comes from the operation of a home. So it's not just the solar panels, it's the battery backups that's required to continuously generate that and use that energy. With the embodied carbon specifically, it's really the focus on the supply chain and the materials. And we're working with a manufacturer that uses a new advanced material to 3D print panels that is 60% recycled. And so that's how we're able to significantly reduce emissions that are Scope 3 emissions, but it is the hardest one, and it is the last one for us to solve. And yes, we build and design all our homes to be LEED as well as WELL certified.
And if I pass that question on also to you, Samuel, are you your reflections or your sort of answers to this as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, happy to say something about that as well. I mentioned circularity when I spoke, and maybe I can connect to that point that I made there. So one thing you mentioned embodied carbon, and that's very hard to quantify. Of course, one consideration that shouldn't be missed is what happens with the material after its useful life, and nobody really knows because I mean a lot of people talk about recycling and so forth, disassembling, but nobody really knows what happens with the building in 50 years from now. but building that option into your design, or at least considering it to the maximum extent possible within the realm of your limitations from a business case and so forth, I think is a crucial element to consider.
Thank you. We have more questions. I think I've seen Petri waving, and then we have one in the back, and then we have one here from Renate. So I think we're pretty well covered. Let's, do you have a mic, Petri? No? Can we please have a mic here in the center? Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Petri Uusitalo. I'm from Aalto University, Finland. And actually, I have a question about these standardizations. Jerker talked about unlocking IC, and standardizations could be a solution for that, and the interfaces. So when we go in that way, we must also talk about tolerances and the different materials, how they connect. So my question is how to manage, what the procedure, what can we do to manage these tolerances to unlock industrialized construction?
Is that maybe for
Daryl?
Yeah. Or open for anyone, of course, but
Yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental issue that you have to incorporate in your design standardization approach. And I think exactly the example I gave with USB, 6 huge companies sitting down and debating all of the protocols and standards. So they're digital equivalent of tolerances, right? So how would data packets be moved at what speeds and with what integrity? So for us, it's physical tolerances and departures from them. And that's what we like about manufacturing, because we can get to precise tolerances. So it's simply about debating, how do I marry a piece of steel to a piece of glass to a piece of timber? And these are pretty much quantified, knowable things that just need to be debated through as to what the standard is. Have we ever had those debates? No, right?
No, that's the problem, because in Finland, you know that much of the buildings are done in concrete. And then you have a kitchen that is done of wood. So there is a lot of problems to these interfaces, and also mass timber and concrete. So
yeah, and that was my point about why you should manufacture the structure, because the Australian standard, I don't know the US standards for this, but the Australian standard says any concrete element can be plus or minus 20 millimetres and be within the standard. And most buildings aren't built to the standard, they're worse than that. And so if you think that through, this element is 20 millimetres this way, this is 20 millimetres that way, I've got a 40 millimetre problem that I'm expected to fit something that's plus or minus 2 millimetres into. It doesn't work. But if we can manufacture from the ground slab up, we've basically put it all into the same tolerance environment, and it's time now to have those discussions about tolerances.
perfect. Any more responses, or we go on to the next question maybe? We have one in the back there.
Yes, hello. My name is Simi, and I'm one of the PhD students here. Sorry, I'm all the way in the back. I'll move forward a little bit. I wanted to ask all of you a quick question. This is something that's actually come up in some of my conversations, thinking about customer focus. I'm curious, I've seen kind of how customer focus has helped improve the product, and from an engineer's point of view, the improvements are really impressive. But I'm curious if there are any kind of like quantifiable sales improvements, any numbers that you can put to show how customer focus has improved the performance of your business?
That's an excellent question. I think we'll actually go over to Europe, to Christoph. Do you have any immediate response to that?
Yes, but I'm not sure if I can answer this question, because we started at the end of 2022, and in this time, maybe at the right time, we launched the Haas configurator, but in this time the market went down. Yeah, maybe 30% of the market went down. The reasons are because regulations are ran out, or I'm sorry, the bonus money from the government run out, all the programs, and the interest rate went up. So these are the major points that we are not selling anymore so much houses in Germany, and everybody of our competitors has the same problem. But at this time, maybe we made the best out of it, and for sure the Haas house configurator has also a positive, positive thing on it. But I cannot say if we would not have the Haas house configurator where we would be right now. This is very tricky to answer.
It's tricky to answer, but I'm sorry, but I think what you mentioned in your presentation, it struck me at least as a very, very interesting possibility, because you have now a direct link to not only actual customers, but also potential customers. And that could be gold in your sort of insights and understanding of what they want and what they want to change and not, and what they like, and so on and so on. But I'm not here to tell you about that, of course. But
I think so too. That it's for sure it will be a goal. And what we also see is that the customer is playing around, and maybe right now he has not the money or the interest rate is too high. But we are like connecting the customer to our company because he thinks. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because the picture was lost. The customer is like connected already to us, and every time I have one customer, he built already 50 houses in the Haas house configurator, and our salesperson called him, why don't you buy a house at Haas? And the problem right now is the interest rate, but he said already when he has the money, for sure he will buy it, and maybe this year it will work out for him.
Yeah. And in the waiting, he will do a lot of configurations. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Should we hand over to the more of from the panel, if you want to give your response?
Look, my experience being in the property development division for nearly 20 years is we become really obsessed by understanding the market before we launch a project. We study a lot of factors and what we think customers are going to like. And after the sale, we couldn't care less. We just take the sale as the evidence that we got it right, and we don't go back and we don't do any, we don't assemble any data. So I think, the answer to your question is I think you're going to find big gaps in the data to actually understand whether we've hit our mark.
I think the only thing I can say is the question, I was thinking about how I'm going to answer this for a couple minutes now, and it's a very interesting question how you quantify that. What's your baseline? How do you cancel out the noise as mentioned, so forth? My suggestion is that maybe you ask me again in a couple of years and hopefully I have a better answer. Yeah.
Or maybe we have a suggestion for a research project. I don't know, but could be. Who knows? Basil, any immediate thought?
Well, I would say that any data that you get, especially in the past 3-5 years, would be very challenging to analyze given the housing market. We had a huge boom during the pandemic. Then we had interest rate environment change drastically, causing almost 50% reduction in transaction volume for single-family homes. So it's very difficult in that environment and context to analyze hard data.
So I think we will take 2 more questions from the live audience, and then we will open up for our online participants. So I will hand over to Renate here, if we can have a mic. There we go. Thanks.
Hi, Renate Fruchter from Stanford University, CIFE and PBL Lab. And thank you for your presentation. It's very inspirational. And it's a follow-up question. Any of your endeavors are considering post-occupancy data collection? And the follow-up question is, love your approach to really look at wellness, and healthcare is a big bill that everyone and every organization and the countries have to cover. And because you are kind of targeting right up front high-end housing and development. Are you looking at opportunities to link wearable data, wellness data, with your smart houses, potentially wellness houses, so that the homes allow us to become healthier after we enter them?
Thank you. And it's exactly what we're thinking and working on right now. So as part of our development, we are building a smart home app that will not just connect and control the devices within the home, but also monitor and measure and optimize performance, individuals' performance within that home. So it's absolutely something that we're very focused on.
Thank you.
Any post-occupancy data?
Oh, yeah, so post-occupancy also will come, with the app, obviously. So we haven't released the smart home app yet, but ultimately every home that we build will come with a smart home app that will allow us to collect the post-occupancy data, on the home as well as the individual performance as well, obviously, if the user allows that. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thanks a lot. I think we had a question here from Jeremy. I see some disappointed faces here. So we'll have one short from you later, but we start with you here. Can we have a mic for?
Hi, everybody.
Okay, you go ahead and then we can take Jeremy. It's confusing here.
Okay, congratulations for the presentations. Really, really good presentations. My name is Carlos Delgado from CGP Consultores, and I've seen that you have basically managed the integration of communication with the market in different approaches. Some of you with the investors, some of the customers, and some of you with the end users in different ways, different approaches by apps or coordinations, etc. My question is, how did you communicate back to your team, and what is the challenge to coordinate them in order to deliver quickly? What was the latency for those coordinations in order to deliver fast to the client?
Anyone who wants to go? Or should we try? Yeah, go ahead.
So for us, interestingly enough, we were lucky to combine our users and investors as effectively one. So our investors are using our company to build their homes. They're also endorsing our homes, and they're also investing in the company. So it's an example of kind of an extreme user, so to speak, who is really passionate about new way of building and wellness. And so we're able to kind of really integrate kind of all of those three aspects into several individuals who are, backing what we do. So in that perspective, the coordination and understanding the differences between the stakeholders has been very positive for us and been a big driver for what we're doing.
Thank you. And now we have the question.
Thank you. This is a question for Polari. It's a follow-up question before about carbon, operational carbon and embodied carbon. I think, you said that it was difficult to measure embodied carbon, but it's never going to get easier than through industrialized construction to measure carbon. So if we can't do it, nobody can, and we have to do it. In your documents, you also said that you had zero waste. Can you tell us how you do that? Because I would love to know. And then a second question, just a quick one, to Samuel, which is in your questionnaire to your over 55s, was there a question about sustainability? So maybe we start with Polari.
So with zero waste specifically, that is calculated by engineering firm Bureau Hubble, and that is the waste generated during the 3D printing process of the panel.
So it's just zero waste on the panel, not in the construction of the whole building.
Right. On the on-site construction, we eliminated as much as possible, and it's minimal. It's not zero, but it is minimal. And if you had seen the pictures of the installation that we had on the presentation, it's a very clean process. We're simply installing the panels together with minimal waste, literally, a bucket of waste per single-family home.
And then
with a carbon specifically, the way to improve it is really through regulations on embodied carbon. I mean, we have very little data from manufacturers today, and it's largely voluntary. It needs to be compulsory. You know, all manufacturers have to provide their embodied carbon data, and that's coming. That's happening. So I see that changing in the near future for the positive.
And the quick follow-up question for Samuel. And also, can you repeat your name and where you come from so that it's clear for everybody?
My name's Jeremy McLeod. I'm out from Australia, in case you couldn't tell. I'm travelling with Building 4.0 CRC, and I'm also a recovering architect, like many of us here. And I think it's incumbent on all of us, whether it's mandated or not, to measure our own carbon and to deal with that.
And the quick question for Samuel?
Yeah,
or you got it already,
yeah.
so it's just me that's slow, maybe. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I understood correctly, right, your question is about, in this analysis, if we checked as in how far this target group focuses on sustainability, and then also what the results were. That was your question, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, so what I want to say is I showed you only one snippet from the overall analysis we did with them. So, of course, these topics were also brought up with them. As far as what the exact response is, I would have to check to give you any quantities. But what we do know is, of course, that for this target group, as well as other target groups, this is a topic that has gained a lot of relevance and that we have to properly consider in our design solutions.
Thank you. And I just want to open up and check with you, Santiago. Do we have any questions from our online participants? No? Yeah, if you have online friends, if you have any questions, type quickly so we can bring them up. And in the meantime, we take one more question from the audience. One more, if we have. If not, we give, yes, we have one here. And remember name and where you come from. Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. Duncan Maxwell from Monash University, also with Building 4.0 CRC. There's a question that goes to the keynote this morning, which is about the demand side. Housing shortage globally. It's not necessarily a problem getting industrialized construction into the market, but with regards to uptake, how do we ensure that the market wants the product?
Was it for me?
No, it's for the panel, but yeah, I think good. Just leveraging the driver.
Yeah, good.
We're aware that there's a shortage, environmental problem. It's a ready solution, effectively, in some regards. But how do we ensure uptake?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone here's got an opinion on this one, but my view is the market doesn't actually care how it was delivered. In fact, they want not to know about it. They just want to know it's a good product and it meets all their aspirations. And so forget about trying to sell them on what the process was, just give them the result. In fact, what we're all striving to do here in these discussions is to give them something that looks quite familiar to what they're used to, but perhaps better.
Absolutely. We found that ourselves as well, is that when we started, we really appealed a lot to sustainability-focused customers, but that is a small niche. Most people buy a home for reasons of wanting to occupy a home and do certain things within a home and not for sustainability. And so it's just like Tesla example, people buy Tesla because it's a beautifully designed car that's high in technology. It's not necessarily because it's more sustainable. So I think it's really delivering a good product that people like ultimately will increase that uptake.
Samuel and Christoph, maybe some short responses?
Yeah, maybe I can also answer this. What we now focus in Germany is that for sure we have customers who care about the environment, and we as Haas are 100% carbon free. For sure we have also our further goals to also that the building can be restructurable. at the end of the lifetime. There we have, for sure, still some things open, and not everything can be rebuildable. But yes, our customers care about the environment, and they ask for it. Not all, but some, and we have also some solutions. Our wall can be made nearly 100% out of wood or wood products. Not the plasterboard on the inside and the outside, but the rest is basically made out of wood. And customers ask.
I thank you, Christoph, and Samuel, if you have any comments.
I think a lot of things have already been said, so I'll keep it short. But when you talk about market absorption, I think there's obviously a host of factors in play. If you think about a real estate project, whether it succeeds, it starts with the availability of land and the price of the land, etc. And then the productization, the industrial construction, that's only one small piece that determines success or failure. I think two things you can focus on is one, of course, as I tried to depict earlier, addressing each stakeholder's needs as closely as possible so that your solution is the best fit. And then I think ultimately price is always an important determining factor as well.
Thank you all. Thank you, presenters, and thank you, audience, for great questions and a great discussion. Now we have actually reached 12. The time is up for this session. We have now 1 hour of lunch. It's already served. And go help yourself, continue the discussion, and we will gather again in 1 hour. So thanks a lot.